We are often taught history through the lens of solitary architects. A visionary ruler makes a decision, and an empire is born. This assumes that specific individuals, like the Sasanian king Ardashir I or the Safavid founder Shah Ismail, single-handedly birthed their respective eras by force of will. But political authority alone is fragile. A military victory or a royal decree rarely possesses the structural density required to sustain a civilization for centuries. Civilizations operate as massive, self-organizing systems. Over generations, they respond to deep internal tensions and severe external pressures by gradually reorganizing their shared laws, memories, and institutions. The figures we call great leaders do not invent civilizations from nothing. They are the visible symptoms of invisible structural shifts that have been accumulating for decades. To understand how this works, we apply a framework called continuity theory. This chart contrasts the traditional linear model of historical change with a systems-oriented network model. We replace the simple sequence of a leader creating a society with a network of cascading effects. It begins here. Long-term social and environmental pressures place strain on a population. This friction initiates broad intellectual movements as society searches for solutions. Eventually, these abstract ideas formalize, solidifying into durable institutions, legal codes, educational systems, and religious networks. We can observe this exact mechanism by comparing two historically distant Iranian empires, Sasanian Zoroastrianism and Safavid Shi'ism. Analyzing these two periods through systems theory reveals that seemingly unique, disconnected empires often execute identical organizational patterns to survive. The Sasanian consolidation of Zoroastrianism occurred between the 3rd and 6th centuries CE. The Safavid consolidation of Twelver Shi'ism occurred roughly a millennium later, during the 16th and 17th centuries. This comparative table models the organizational cycle of both empires side by side. Both states emerged from severe political fragmentation, and both faced formidable external threats, the Roman and Byzantine empires for the Sasanians, and the Ottoman Empire for the Safavids. Their structural responses matched. Both states utilized a religious framework, Zoroastrianism and Twelver Shi'ism, to generate internal cohesion. The Sasanian state initiated a massive project to collect, organize, and canonize the Avesta. They centralized the priesthood and established fire temples throughout the region to forge a common civilizational identity capable of resisting Roman pressure. The Safavid state faced a similar deficit of cohesion. They imported scholars from Lebanon, Iraq, and Bahrain, relying on Shi'i jurisprudence and the rapid formation of seminaries to build a unified national identity distinct from the Ottomans. Despite a millennium of separation and completely different theologies, the macro-organizational reorganization required to resist external strain was structurally identical. To understand how these states actually pulled this off, we have to look past the macro-historical events and examine the micro-mechanics of civilizational construction. This 3D architectural stack represents the specific interacting layers required for any civilization to endure. Sociologists call this the social skeleton. It begins with the foundational base layer of philosophy, which generates the society's core concepts of existence. Abstract concepts must translate into lived reality. This happens through the layers of ethics, which regulates morality, and religion, which provides shared meaning. Next, the society must coordinate its population. It stacks an education layer for knowledge transmission and a law layer for behavioral coordination. The ritual layer then locks in above that, synchronizing the population's emotions and collective memory. All of these previous systems are anchored by institutions. This wide, heavy layer provides the structural stability that prevents the culture from dissolving over time. Only after this entire skeleton is built do we reach the government layer. Political authority sits at the very peak, providing executive coordination. Political power is inherently precarious. If the cultural or institutional layers beneath it fracture, the government sitting on top will inevitably collapse. This abstract social skeleton is not built by magic. It is constructed by specific human beings, acting as intellectual nodes within the network. The Safavid era provides a precise case study. During this period, we can observe 3 distinct scholars optimizing completely different civilizational layers simultaneously. Shaykh al-Tusi lived centuries before the Safavids, but his intellectual legacy became the bedrock of their system. His primary concern was jurisprudence and legal methodology. Mapping him onto our model, Shaykh al-Tusi slots directly into the law and institutions layers. He provided the durable scholarly structure that survived changing political winds. Mulla Sadra asked an entirely different question: what is existence? He pursued ontology and substantial motion, producing complex metaphysical arguments designed for a highly specialized audience of advanced seminarians. Bringing our model back, Mulla Sadra occupies the foundational philosophy layer, expanding the society's intellectual horizons. Meanwhile, Allameh Majlesi worked within the established system to educate the public. He utilized narrative thinking, relying heavily on transmitted traditions, historical reports, and public rituals to reach a mass audience. In our 3D framework, Majlesi fills the ritual and religion layers, strengthening the emotional cohesion across society. These three figures are often studied in isolation, but in a systems theory view, they are not competing personalities. They are specialized nodes, each generating a necessary dimension of civilizational organization. When we zoom out and watch these systems adapt over centuries, we are observing a phenomenon called civilizational geodynamics. Civilizational geodynamics is the constant construction and reconstruction of regulatory continua, the shared laws, ethics, and education, under shifting pressures. External variables like war, trade, or ideological competition constantly perturb these currents. Eventually, the accumulated strain exceeds a threshold, and the existing organization can no longer maintain equilibrium. The society must reorganize its space-time. Only after this deep structural shift occurs do the famous historical figures, the kings and the scholars, emerge as the visible faces of the new era. True historical continuity is not found in static, unchanging doctrines. It resides in the recurring organizational processes through which societies seek renewed coherence. This model moves us beyond the traditional view that individuals create civilizations from nothing. Leaders amplify, channel, or accelerate systemic tendencies that have been developing across generations. We must stop asking simply who changed history. We must instead ask how civilizations continuously reorganize themselves through evolving intellectual and institutional continua in order to survive.